What's going on, everyone? Welcome to Forward Progress. It's Super Wildcard Week edition here on the Forward Progress YouTube channel, part of the Hammer Betting Network, and presented, as always, by FanDuel. I'm Rob Pizzola. We're joined by the full crew this week. Suma, Judah, Hitman are all here. It's the playoffs. Quick recap of last week. We went 1-2 on the best bets. Shout out to Suma. He cashed on the Jags. Got very good closing line value there, which is actually pretty hard when we do the show late in the week. Hitman, also good closing line value, got cucked by that half point in the Patriots total. Finishes 39 on the 38.5. What are you going to do? Such is life. This week, a little bit different. No official best bets. It's a 6-game card. Don't want to force people to give out a best bet if they don't love anything on the card. Instead, though, we are going to break down every single game on the slate. We'll give you our insights and thoughts. We'll talk sides, totals. We'll talk player props, anything that we're going to cover for that game. You can take that info. You can run with it however you want. Completely up to you. Let's jump right in. Super Wildcard Weekend starts right now, and it's going to start on Saturday with the Los Angeles Chargers visiting the Houston Texans. Little bit of Texans money showing in market, taking this number off of 3 at several sportsbooks, including FanDuel, where we have a juiced Chargers -2.5, -120 right now. From the opener to where we stand now on the total as well, 42.5 has been bet down to the under. Suma, we'll open this show with you. Chargers and Texans, break down the matchup for us and which side you're liking in this game.
Yeah, Chargers O-line has been a little bit banged up, but Rashawn Slater was full yesterday. I think having tackles is very important in this matchup. Danielle Hunter and Will Anderson are arguably the best edge tandem from a pass rushing perspective in the league this season. So you desperately needed Rashawn Slater to be healthy. It looks like he is. Very good news for Justin Herbert because I think he needs at least some time and some space in the pocket to operate, because these outside receivers, I don't think they will see a lot of ground. Derek Stingley will lock down like anyone who is going to line up there. Kamari Lassiter is having a really good season. So I think the Chargers offense will go through Ladd McConkey, through their Titans over the slot. McConkey has a slot usage of like 65 to 70% this season. The Texans on paper, I think, don't really have the bodies to cover a guy like Ladd McConkey. They are usually very decent against slot receivers, but I think they should struggle against that Herbert McConkey connection. I really think that this it sounds very lazy because this is basically the Chargers offense this season, but I think this will also be the key for the Chargers to move the ball here. On the other side, I think this show has been extremely down on CJ Stroud and the Texans offense. I think this just is not a serious offense. They are basically bottom 10 in lots of the major metrics. Having a depleted wide receiving group did not help them. Chargers play a lot of light boxes, but they still can defend the run out of it. Denzel Perryman will be back this week. I think that the Texans will struggle once again to move the ball on the ground, and then they will likely be in a lot of these longer down distances against a very disciplined Chargers zone coverage. And I just don't see how this Texans offense all of a sudden has some explosion. I think they will struggle again. They will be one-dimensional against this defense. And if CJ Stroud cannot connect on like several deep bombs to Nico Collins, I just don't see how the Texans move the ball here. I think Nico Collins has to have a monster game for them to create explosives and move the ball. This price for a Chargers team on the road is very bold, but at the -2.5, -120 at FanDuel, I would lean towards the Chargers. I just think I'm getting the better overall team and the better quarterback here.
Yeah, important to note as well that most of the market is set at 3 right now on this game, juiced towards the Houston Texans. The FanDuel 2.5, if you're interested in the Chargers, that might be the look there. Now, I've consumed a lot of content this week. We're doing our show a week later than we normally do. Over the course of the season, it's been Wednesday best bet, so I've had an additional day. And I see a lot of commonalities in how people are handicapping this game, which is really struggling to make a case for the Texans. Even if people, have their numbers directionally lead towards Houston, I've heard a lot of people say, I'm just staying off this game because I don't trust that team or anything along those lines. So most of the cases I've seen made have been an X's and O's perspective, Chargers type of victory. Hitman, I know you're someone here that leans towards the Texans as well. Have you been able to pull the trigger on them, or are you in the same boat as other people where you might lean that way, but it's just too hard to come around on this team?
I haven't, but I came close. I'd probably consider it a pretty strong lean at the moment on Houston. I feel like these teams are both a lot more similar than the market is saying. I mean, both teams are really inefficient on early downs, and they're reliant on their quarterback to bail them out on 3rd and long. Both teams have above average defenses. The difference with the Chargers compared to Houston is that they've been more efficient on a lot of these 3rd and longs, but that's really not a good long-term plan for success to constantly be in these. Houston is 30th on set of downs to reach 3rd and long. The Chargers are 25th. Houston's 30th on success rate on early down runs, which they've been extremely stubborn with this year. The Chargers are 23rd. I do think that Houston is a team that is not very game plan specific. They're going to run their offense, whether they're going against the 1st ranked run defense or the 32nd ranked run defense. I think that it kind of benefits them in this matchup that they are going against a Chargers run defense that's 25th in yards per carry allowed to opposing running backs, or 18th in success rate to opposing running backs. During this late season slide that they've had, they've faced a lot of really good run defenses. Houston on defense is pretty good against the run. They're 4th in yards per carry allowed to opposing backs. They are 8th in success rate. And the Chargers have faced a really easy strength of schedule this year. I believe they're 30th in strength of schedule. There are 2 wins against playoff teams this year, have come against both games were against Denver. They've faced a lot of really bad quarterbacks. It's made their defense look a little better than some of their year-to-date metrics. And I just think that right now, this is the low point in market on the entire year for what these two teams would be matched at. I can't think of any other week this season where we would be at a price point where Chargers would be -3 on the road. So I haven't bet it yet, but Houston directionally is the lean that I had.
I'm going to jump in. I'm going to correct you on one thing, Hitman, but I will also take blame because I've been saying this for a long time as well. But this is actually really surprising when I went through this matchup this week. Obviously, Suma mentioned Denzel Perryman back, and that's going to affect the Chargers' run defense, which I totally agree with. And I was thinking, well, Houston's so run happy on early downs, they're going to get themselves into 3rd and 10s and things of that nature. I went back and listen, this is arbitrary endpoint stuff, but there was a point in the season where this dynamic actually shifted. And since week 12, throw out last week, by the way, throw out week 18, doesn't matter. Week 12 to week 17 for the Houston Texans, they're 3rd in the league in early down pass rate. So they went from being heavy early down run to heavy early down pass. None of it has worked in any capacity. So, I mean, at some point you got to call up Bobby Slowick and be like, well, this offense is just not functioning dynamically. Obviously they've had injuries at receiver as well. But to me, that's my hesitation with backing Houston in this game, is that they've tried everything on offense with the exception of one drive last week against Tennessee, where people are starting to get excited. They really haven't been able to do much. And part of that has been offensive penalties as well. Laramie Tunsil's taken a ton of holds this year. They force his team into, a team that's already inefficient on offense to try to convert, and that's making it a little bit more challenging. So I don't have a strong opinion here. I kind of echo a lot of what Hitman said. I would only be able to back the Texans at this price, but I'm not there. Judah, you're not talking player props. Hitman's normally our player props guy, but there's something that you're looking for in this particular game. Let the people know.
Yeah, we got a Thursday playoffs. Markets are fairly efficient, but we also have a lot more props than we usually do. I'm looking at Justin Herbert alt yardage props here. I think one of the things that has changed on the Houston side is that their secondary is banged up. Jalen Petrie is going to be out. Jimmy Ward's going to be out. This certainly matters on the efficiency side of things, but also the Texans structurally force a lot of deep passes. This has been true each of the past 2 years of D'Amico Ryans. This year, they faced the second most deep attempts, the third highest depth of target. But their opponents they faced about 85 of these passes. 33 of these have been either drops or uncatchable targets, which is to say that though the explosive play rates don't look terrible for the Texans, I don't think that is a function of kind of a systemic ability to take these plays away, but rather some being on the right side of variance here. Justin Herbert has been great throwing deep throughout his career. He's been this way as well this season with one of the highest deep passing efficiency. I just see this as a spot where the Chargers continue to lean on their pass heavy ways. They've been one of the highest pass over expected teams since Justin Herbert came back earlier this season. It's been a trend of the last 10 weeks. The markets are still seemingly baking in some prior. His attempts are at like 31 right now, is what I saw. And I think this is a spot where the Chargers can take advantage of a secondary that has been a little bit better at stopping explosive plays than I think their underlying scheme would suggest.
All right, our first prop look into the second game on Saturday. This is Saturday night. We'll be live on air here on Forward Progress for a live watch along of Steelers and Ravens. Zay Flowers officially ruled out for the Baltimore Ravens, which is a big blow to their depth at wide receiver. There's some illness going around with Pittsburgh. Cameron Hayward didn't practice yesterday. Their kicker didn't practice. Probably going to be fine as the week progresses here. They get Dante Jackson back at corner as well. Ravens out to -9.5, -115. It's been all Ravens money this week, trending back towards 10 in some spots, including FanDuel. Total, as many this week, been bet down to 43.5. We're going to go to you here first, Judah, for this breakdown. Steelers, Ravens, Sunday Night Football. What do you like in this matchup?
Yeah, if I had to choose a side, it would be Pittsburgh here. I think that everything they kind of do schematically matches up well with the Ravens. Number one, this is a team that has been historically good at containing scrambling quarterbacks, and this has been true for a number of seasons. And one of the things that I am also looking at is the Steelers' defense has been pretty bad if you can get rid of the ball in 2.5 seconds or shorter, and we saw that with Patrick Mahomes carving them up. But they have been the best defense in the NFL once or on plays that last more than 2.5 seconds. And I think that points to their pass rush, obviously, and Lamar Jackson's style of play is not a quarterback who can kind of stay in rhythm with quick passes. That's not his game. Can Lamar Jackson overcome this matchup? Of course. Does it hurt him that the Steelers, I think, are well suited to mitigate his rushing ability? Absolutely. I don't think it's a coincidence, kind of seen in that light, that the Steelers have played Lamar Jackson so well. And also Jackson has absolutely torched the zone coverage looks, especially in the intermediate areas of the field. But the Steelers are going to play a bunch of man coverage as they have in recent weeks. And they have a massive drop-off after Joey Porter. Joey Porter, at least by my separation numbers, has been one of the best corners in the NFL. Their numbers 2, 3, and 4 have been a disaster. But with Zay Flowers out, you're relying on Nelson Aguilar to win. And obviously that can happen, but I don't think that's the surest of bets. Of course, there are many ways this game can play out. It would be completely unsurprising to see the Ravens run all over the Steelers and stomp them. But I think there are a lot of plays or ways this game can play out, especially from the Steelers defense, mitigating the Ravens offense a bit. If I had to choose a side, I'd go on 9.5 here.
Yeah, I incorrectly said Sunday Night Football. It's obviously Saturday Night Football here. Also, I incorrectly said all Ravens money. There is a clear resistance point at 10. Anytime we've seen 10s show in market, most of those get snatched on the Steelers as well. So that seems to be that resistance point. Suma, I'll go over to you here as well. Judah made a handicap for the Steelers. Are you agreeing with him, or are you looking to the other side?
Yes, I'm in agreement. For sure, the +10 was a little bit sweeter. Would probably still be looking at the Steelers here. I echo a lot of what Judah has said. I think that Zay Flowers was a major focal point of this offense. He has, I think, 44 more targets than the next one, Rashad Bateman. And they use him very interchangeable and flexible. Sometimes he's like a deep threat. Sometimes he runs a lot of horizontal routes depending on the opposing matchups. And now you really drop down the depth chart, and like Judah said, I expect the Steelers to play a lot more man coverage. I think they will go heavy, stack the box, try to try to shut down Henry and then try to create some positive variance by forcing Lamar into mistakes. I think Lamar has always been a very, let's call it, favorable matchup for the Steelers defense. Last matchup, Ravens won rather convincingly, but how does the game go, or how does the game flow go if Russell Wilson does not fumble the ball after his scramble at the 2 or 3 yard line of the Ravens? I just think in general it's hard to make a good case for the Steelers offense here, but I think even at a reduced 9.5, this might still be a little bit too much for the Steelers, in my opinion.
Yeah, I got to agree with both of you, Suma and Judah. I'm with you on board with the Steelers here. There is some 10 minus 115 in market out there right now, so they do exist, and it's not like they're hidden. These are widely available numbers to people as well, and I certainly think that's a valuable position. I bet the Ravens the last time these teams matched up against each other, and I bet them at 6. I can't remember the exact closer. I think it might have been 6.5, maybe a full touchdown in that game. But that was a game, as Suma pointed out, that was very misleading. George Pickens didn't play for Pittsburgh, which I think will be a big deal in this game, having him on the field, trying to create some explosives against the Ravens D that has given up some explosives this year. The Russell Wilson fumble inside the 5 was a big turning point. There was a pick 6 at the end of that game that made it really misleading. So ultimately, you have to account for what's happened, since that particular game. And the Steelers haven't looked good. You have to downgrade them in market for recent performances. They've had a lot of steps up in class. They've underwhelmed, but I do think we've gone out a little bit too far, especially with the Zay Flowers injury at this point. So I'm with Suma and Judah here. I like the Steelers in this matchup. Hitman, I did want to ask you about props as it pertains to this particular game, because Zay Flowers has now been ruled out. So when you hear that type of news, what are you reacting to in real time? And what is there to do from a prop perspective on the Ravens now that Flowers is sidelined?
There wasn't much in real time just because it was pretty much expected. He didn't practice all week. A lot of books did have lines on some of the other wide receivers like Tylan Wallace and Nelson Aguilar already. So it was pretty much expected, but I probably expect that Baltimore's base personnel ends up being 12 personnel. It benefits Andrews and Likely just because of the fact that at some points during the season, they were splitting a lot of time, splitting some of the routes. Now it's probably going to lead to a pretty much essentially full-time role for Mark Andrews. And I would guess close to a full-time role for Isaiah Likely, because if you end up going 11 personnel and you take Likely off the field and you're subbing him for Nelson Aguilar or Wallace, it's just a clear difference in ability level between those players. And it could be a game that Baltimore, like Lamar's forced to throw a little bit more, just because of the fact that Pittsburgh has done a really good job limiting him in the run game historically and forcing him to be more of a passer. So I would expect heavy 12 personnel from Baltimore.
All right. Carlos in the chat asks thoughts on the total. Anyone here have any strong opinion on the total? I mean, I have a very small numerical lean towards the over, but weather doesn't look to be an issue. I see a lot of shaking of heads. So sorry, Carlos, no opinions on the total in this game. We all do, at least the 3 of us do lean towards Pittsburgh, a little bit more of a split opinion earlier on Houston and the LA Chargers. All right, we're going to get into the Sunday games in 1 second, but a reminder, the NFL playoffs are here. There's no better place to get in on the action than America's #1 sportsbook, FanDuel, because right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place any $5 bet. Place any $5 bet, you get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. You can use your bets on spreads, props, live bets, including the to catch a pass market, over-unders, and so much more. Love betting on FanDuel. I think it's a very, very good, seamless experience. You guys see that when we do our live watch alongs here on Forward Progress. We get those odds up in real time. We bet in real time. Great live betting, tons of options. Just visit FanDuel.com/forwardprogress to download America's #1 sportsbook. That's FanDuel.com/forwardprogress. You must be 21 plus and present in select states. For Kansas, in affiliation with Kansas Star Casino, or 18 plus and present in DC. First online real money wager only. $5 first deposit is required. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets, which expire 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Visit fanduel.com/RG. Call 1-888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org/chat in Connecticut. Visit mdgamblinghelp.org in Maryland. Hope is here. Visit gamblinghelplinema.org or call 800-327-5050 for 24/7 support in Massachusetts, or call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY in New York. Okay, Sunday games. We got 3 of them. Bills in the early time slot, as they usually are on Sundays, at least when the game's not getting moved during the playoffs. Bills hosting the Denver Broncos. Haven't seen a ton of market movement on this one. FanDuel -8.5, -112 on Buffalo. Just looking across the screen right now, and we do see some of the sharper books at 9. Total did get bet down at the opener. It got down to 46. There was some buyback on the over yesterday, up to 47 in some spots, back up to 47.5 at FanDuel as well. Suma, I'll go to you here first. Denver, Buffalo, break down the matchup for us.
Yeah, Bills defense has been really, really bad against the pass over the past half of the season. Since week 8, I think they ranked 28th or something in EPA per play. Also not really high in success rate. They've really been bad against the pass. And in theory, rookie quarterback on the road, that's usually not a great spot. I think in theory, the Bills defense could rush 4 and drop 7 guys into zone coverage and try to keep everything in front of them, try to trigger on all the screens, try to limit Bo Nix running the ball, scrambling, or designed runs, try to limit big plays and really force Bo Nix to make a lot of decisions on each drive, force them to incrementally move the ball down the field. But then again, I don't know whether the Bills defensive line can really get a lot of disruptive pressure on that pass protection to really make Bo Nix super uncomfortable. So maybe more in theory than practical speaking. In theory, Denver on the other side could also play a lot of man coverage with their cornerbacks. And Bills receivers tendently have struggled against man coverage this season. But I'm not sure that the Bills will go the route, because the Bills have shown lots of ways to move the ball on offense. They rank, I think, number 1 in the league in usage of the 6th offensive lineman. They like to go 21 personnel. And I think that's an area where you can attack this Denver front 7, and I think that the Bills will utilize this a lot, try to get away from those heavy man coverage and really force the issue on the ground, run the ball, use a 6th offensive lineman, try to use play action off of that to maybe disrupt some of the communication for that secondary. And I think that might be great recipe for the Bills to move the ball. Denver also likes to blitz a lot. Josh Allen is, he's basically Superman. He's very good against the blitz. So I think that the Bills offense, how they are structured, is equipped to run the ball against this front, and then Josh Allen should do the rest. So overall, I think I would not be surprised if this might lean towards a little bit higher scoring game, but I generally don't have a strong opinion on this one. Also, no opinion on the spread.
Yeah, I'll spare people the conversation about the teaser here. Obviously, if you're familiar with the teaser fundamentals, the Bills would probably qualify this week. There might not be great options to pair them with necessarily, depending on what happens with the Minnesota Rams line, but that's just an obvious one. Now that the total's moved up to 47.5, I have less of an opinion on the total than I originally did. John Smith in the chat says Denver defense overrated. And I to the Browns defense from last year, and not the way that they make up in terms of personnel, but I believe that their defensive numbers have really been boosted by playing some really bad opponents that they've had a lot of success against. But when they've taken a step up in class, we've seen these defenses get beat pretty bad. Now, there have been injuries in the cornerback group particularly to their second corner opposite of Patrick Surtain, and that certainly contributed. But if we look at the Broncos defense, especially on the road, steps up in class this year. They gave up a lot of points at Cincinnati. They gave up a lot of points at the Chargers. They got smoked by Baltimore 41-10 in those games. And I do see this being a very similar experience. Buffalo vastly outperforms their team totals more than any other team in the league this year by almost 6 points per game, which is kind of unheard of. I think the offense somehow is still a little bit underrated. As Suma mentioned, there's just so many dynamic ways for them to beat other teams. So I don't have an opinion on 47.5. 47 is a very key number when it comes to betting NFL totals, but I do lean slightly over to that. And also a lot of the books that do have 47 out there also are pricing Buffalo's team total at 27.5, juice towards the over instead of 28.5, which I think is also a decent play in this game as well, as I think Buffalo matches up well offensively with the Denver Broncos. I do want to have a little bit of a props discussion here with you, Hitman, on mobile quarterbacks this week. I did some other content this week, and I've watched other content, as I mentioned earlier, and a lot of people are betting quarterback rushing overs this week because of the perception of it's a higher leverage game. You lose, you go home. Quarterbacks are going to put it all on the line. And I want to talk about it with this particular game because you have two quarterbacks that are known to run the ball, Josh Allen, Bo Nix. Those are guys, if we look at how they're priced in the market right now, 42.5 on Josh Allen, 26.5 on Bo Nix. Do you see an angle on quarterback rushing overs in this week, Hitman? Or do you think that that's something that is already priced into the market for a lot of these players?
Yeah, a few years ago, it was a little bit better of an angle because I do agree with the handicap of quarterbacks just tending to run a bit more in the playoffs. There's no holding them back. They're likely not going to slide or go out of bounds. They're going to go for touch. They're going to go for the first down if it's at a high leverage point in the game and all that. But kind of like incentive week, as you mentioned, Rob, it's known there's been already a lot of early movement on the numbers. If you do like an over on a lot of these quarterbacks rushing yards, it's about, in my opinion, selectively finding a situation that you think that the line hasn't moved enough, or it's about finding a situation where you think that it doesn't make much of a difference and you believe this quarterback's not going to be inclined to run as much, and you end up betting under closer to post as the number has steamed. But I think it's a good handicap, but it's just on a case-by-case basis where you kind of got to just figure out, has this been accounted for enough? Like Josh Allen, for example, he's in the low 40s right now, rushing yards. There was points week 16 and week 17 that I was playing him under 31.5 rushing yards. Mm-hmm. So there's been definitely been a price shift in these guys.
All right. Good to know on that front. Judah, I know you don't have a strong opinion on this game. Anything here that might catch your eye, or is this just going to end up being a complete pass for you?
I think it's mostly a pass.
All right. Fair enough. That's it. Don't want to force any reads on anyone else. Green Bay, Philly, the uncertainty game of the week. Lots going on here. After this show airs, we're going to get more information on this game moving forwards. Obviously, both quarterbacks in flux. Jalen Hurts did practice for the Philadelphia Eagles yesterday. He's coming off of a concussion a few weeks ago. It remains to be seen what his status will be, although it is trending towards him playing in this game. Jordan Love injures his elbow last week, and the Twitter doctors come out and say it's probably not a thing, maybe just a funny bone type of scenario. He's limited yesterday in practice. Matt LaFleur, who, I mean, he made it seem like there's some serious doubt. I don't know if that's gamesmanship or anything like that, but we'll see where Jordan Love is at on Friday. So there's a lot of uncertainty in this game as the market has settled at 4.5 here in this particular spot. I'll go over you here first, Judah. You wanted to take a look at the total in this game. I assume that's maybe somewhat related to the quarterback uncertainty.
Yeah, I anticipate both quarterbacks playing. How much or what strength are they at? I have no idea. I'm certainly not a doctor, don't love to prognosticate on injuries, but seeing what Jalen Hurts not going through the concussion protocol in like 7 to 10 days is concerning to me, just given what we know about concussions, even outside of like the NFL. if this is a 2 to 3 week process, that itself is concerning. Not to mention that though it is a small sample, you have some compelling evidence of quarterbacks struggling in their first game back from concussion. So I would be concerned on that front. Jordan Love, I don't think is healthy. I don't think he was hiding that, even if he's going to play. Nonetheless, this is a spot where both teams, I think, are going to run the ball a lot. These are the two run heaviest teams relative to expectation, going up against run defenses that kind of, no matter how you want to slice it, rush yards, rush success rate, rush EPA have been top 5 over the last couple of months of the season. That isn't to say that any of these teams can't overcome that matchup. It just, to me, it necessitates a lot of sustaining drives via the ground. And I don't think that's a sustainable method of success given the strengths of the opposing rush defenses. This is a spot where I'll be looking to the under.
Yeah, there's been a little bit of buyback towards the over. Like many games this week, this was originally bet towards the under. Some of the sharper books out to 46 again now in this particular spot. I agree with Judah, and it's not just the uncertainty angle here for this game. The loss of Christian Watson, in my opinion, really hurts the Packers offense from a deep play potential. I mean, if we look at the Packers' last 2 seasons, it's no secret that their EPA ends up being very high. Their success rate numbers tend to be a little bit lower, and that indicates that obviously they've been living off of big plays, and they have, they find challenges moving the ball methodically down the field. Without Watson, they do have to methodically move the ball downfield, and Jordan Love, in my opinion, he's just not there yet in terms of being able to do that consistently, especially against an Eagles defense that has very good cover corners. I do agree with Judah. I think they'll probably run the ball a lot. They'll try to have success there. But ultimately, I do see this being a longer drawn-out game. Plus of the uncertainty at both quarterback positions, I do lean to the under in this game as well. Speaking of the uncertainty here, Hitman, how do you approach games like this from a prop perspective where you don't even know which quarterbacks are going to be on the field or how limited they're going to be? Is that something that you like to pass on, or do you like to be a little bit more aggressive earlier in the week and take some positions there?
I like to be more aggressive, but to me, there isn't a ton of uncertainty with who the quarterbacks are going to be. It seems almost a certainty that we end up getting Jordan Love versus Jalen Hurts. Mm-hmm. If you thought at some point this week that there did end up being some uncertainty, I mean, there's obviously a massive drop-off in a running quarterback, Malik Willis, from Jordan Love for a lot of the pass catchers. So if you thought you had something, would look at alternate unders or same game parlays of multiple Packers pass catchers to go under for Philly. If you believe that a guy coming back from a concussion or a quarterback coming back from a concussion has a performance dip the next game, maybe see how Jalen Hurts looks early in the game and attack it live. But to me, there's not a lot of uncertainty in the game. I expect it's going to be Jordan Love versus Jalen Hurts. That's what the market's pretty much telling us.
Yeah, that's the way it's being priced right now. We have had some live movement as we've been talking about this game. The Eagles are out to 5 now, so they're getting bet a little bit. Suma pointed out in our private chat that A.J. Brown was not at practice today. I'm looking at John Clark, who is with NBCS Philly, who tweeted that A.J. Brown is resting today, not practicing to aid in getting him 100% ready for Sunday. It's part of the plan for them. As they have been resting him down the stretch as he hasn't been 100%. Suma, I just wanted to get your thoughts really quickly on here. You're a noted Packers lover this year. I think on the show you've been betting the Packers a lot. Do you have interest in them again this week, or is this Jordan Love situation just too much for you to handle?
The Jordan Love situation is too dynamic right now. Just cannot be sure that he's at 100%. I'm rather looking a little bit towards the under because I can see both offenses struggling, and I don't want to underestimate Jalen Hurts coming off of that concussion, who hasn't practiced fully in like 2.5 weeks now, and quarterbacks coming off concussion are always slightly underperforming. Also, where the Packers defense is highly vulnerable, all these in-breaking routes over the middle of the field, I'm not sure that Jalen Hurts has that in him. So in general, slightly leaning towards the under.
Okay. If you made it this far in the breakdown so far, probably means you're enjoying the show or you find some value in it. If you can, just smash that like button down below here on YouTube. It goes a long way to helping us grow our Forward Progress YouTube channel. Sunday Night Football, correctly this time, is going to be the Tampa Bay Buccaneers hosting the Washington Commanders. This is a rematch back from week 1 of the regular season, in which the Bucs won in dominating fashion. Taking a look at the market right now, we have seen some back and forth on this game. Early money towards Washington, some buyback on Tampa, little back towards Washington. We've been hovering around 3 and on 3 the whole time, but the VIG changing. And as it stands right now, Tampa Bay -3, -105 is the price at FanDuel. Suma, I will start with you here. Tampa, Washington, you were looking at one of the sides in this game.
Yes, I like the matchup for the Bucs offense. Bucs offense has been really, really good this season. This is a top 5 offense. Let's just assume that Marshall Lattimore is at 100%, which I doubt after his 2 injuries during the second half of the season. And let's say he's at 100% and he might shut down Mike Evans. Then I still don't see a path for the Commanders offense to stop the Bucs run game. A lot of the run concepts that the Bucs use is where the Commies defense is extremely vulnerable. So I think even without Mike Evans getting 8 to 10 targets, I would still expect the Bucs to move the ball very heavily on the ground. And I mean, who is going to cover McMillan? Just don't know. And if the Commanders cannot stop this run game, I think it's going to be a very long day for them. So I think that the Bucs will score, and then on the other side, they can put scoring pressure on Jane Daniels, another rookie quarterback, first start on the road against a Todd Bowles defense. I'm not really high on Todd Bowles as a head coach, but I think on any given day, he can still scheme it up against the younger quarterbacks of the league. Tampa Bay's defense is decent against the run. I think that guys like Vita Vea, they can really clock down on all those inside runs, also those inside quarterback runs with Jaden Daniels, and their secondary is getting healthier. Antron Winfield was full yesterday. Jamel Dean looks like he's going to be back, can be put on Terry McLaurin. So this is a Bucs defense that is getting healthier. And I think in combination with their offense being able to score, I think their defense can contain this Commies offense enough to make this a solid game for them.
Judah, you can add on here. I believe you're liking the Bucs in this matchup as well.
Yeah, the Bucs for many of the same reasons that Suma mentioned. This has just been an offense, certainly on the drive level, that has been one of the best in the NFL, even without Mike Evans. They've been terrific, and Washington's defense has struggled on both ends, certainly. If you opponent adjust on the passing side of things. But I'll just add that defensively, Tampa Bay is a very, very heavy blitz team. They're second in the NFL in blitz rate. And more recently, if it were not for the Vikings blitzing on nearly 2/3 of their dropbacks, they would be highest in the NFL. And they also play a lot of single high coverage, which are both areas where Jaden Daniels has been less efficient. His sack rate against the blitz it goes up to like 11%. That can certainly kill many drives. And if you don't have a ground game to speak of, that's the other thing I should say. Like Tampa Bay's run defense has been probably the best in the NFL over the second half of the season. It's been significantly better since Vita Vea got back in weeks 5 and 6. I think the Commanders are going to have a very difficult time running the ball, which is putting a lot on Jaden Daniels' shoulders. And then if you kind of look into the tendencies of the Bucs defense, these are areas where Daniels has struggled against the blitz, against single high, that I'd be concerned on the Washington side. They basically need Jaden Daniels to be an alien in order to, I think, keep up the pace with Tampa, who I think should be able to score at will against a struggling Washington defense.
Yeah, just like the Steelers game, I'm going to agree with both of you guys here. And we're seeing some commentary in the chat about this game. But Jaden Daniels left last week with what was described as a sore leg in a game where they could have improved playoff positioning against the Cowboys. There's definitely a non-zero chance that he is not healthy for this game. To add to Judah's point, the knock on Jaden Daniels coming out of college, and listen, I'm not a college scout or expert by any stretch of the imagination, but I do really focus in on the draft. The big knock on him was sack avoidance and just taking too many sacks and holding the ball for far too long. And we've seen that come to fruition in the latter half of the year here as well, as teams have kind of started to figure him out a little bit. Todd Bowles being a very good defensive guy and someone who shut him down already in week 1, I think we'll have some success in this matchup. Judah mentioned the run defense for the Bucs. I'd like to talk about the run offense, because when they have that working, it really allows Baker to just absolutely cook. They have the play action going. He's not in 3rd and long and doing stupid things back there in the pocket and forcing balls. And in this particular matchup, Washington's run defense, even with Jonathan Allen back from IR, they're going to be one of the worst run defenses in the league. They're probably the worst one going into the playoffs here. So I think Tampa will find success on the ground in this game, whereas Washington won't. Can the Commanders overcome that? Obviously, yes, they can. But I personally think 3 is a little bit of a short price in this game as well. So I'm with Judah and Suma on this one, just like I was with the Steelers. Hitman, I do want to ask you about this game. I know you have paying customers, but I'm going to say it anyways. You released the Washington Commanders earlier this week. Different number than where we're at now. 3.5 minus 115s were available at the time of your release. Some minus 120 in the market. We're now down to 3. Do you still feel like Washington is a valuable bet at 3, or if you had nothing going in this game, would you pass at this point?
Yeah, it's a pass at this point. The lines are tight. 3.5 minus 115 to 3 minus 115 is the difference between a positive expectation bet and a negative expectation bet. So I wouldn't bet it at current market. A prop look that I had in this game was, I think this could be more of an Austin Eckler game. Brian Robinson has been struggling with efficiency. He's been struggling with fumbles. Tampa is really susceptible to pass catching backs, and just Eckler's style of play is a little bit of a better fit against this Bucs defense than just running up in the interior against Vita Vea. So I thought that was that's a possible look you could have in this game. And I do think that the Lattimore Evans stuff, that there is something to Lattimore being a really physical corner who can hold up and contain Evans. So I don't think that, I mean, obviously we have a long sample size of Lattimore having a lot of success against Evans. And I think that is just a legitimate matchup that Lattimore has gotten the better of, because Mike Evans his game is kind of like bully ball, and Lattimore is not a guy that he's been able to do that to. So 2 prop looks, maybe think it's a little bit more of an Eckler game and some anti-Evans stuff in this one.
When you say a little more of an Eckler game, would you prefer the receiving yards market or rushing yards or all of the above?
Probably it would be receiving, but to be honest, like, I think that they should be using him more in the run game more than Brian Robinson, and using some more outside zone stuff as in comparison to just running Brian Robinson up the middle. And remember, Brian Robinson also 1 fumble in this game, and that could be the end for him with how his ball security has been in the past few weeks. I know he fumbled twice against the Eagles a few weeks ago. So, yeah, it would probably be the receiving, but combo yards maybe worth thinking about also.
Yeah. Quick reminder for everyone out there, tomorrow, 4 p.m. Eastern time, Hitman will join our producer, Jizzy J, Jason Cooper, for a live prop Q&A right here on Forward Progress. If you're looking to dive deep into the prop market, you do not want to miss this. So this week, it's a live show, 4 p.m. instead of a Saturday video dropping. Hitman, as much as I hate to praise this guy, he is one of the foremost authorities on props. He has real market influence. Bring your questions. Get ready for some top-tier insights. That's tomorrow, Friday the 10th, 4 p.m. Eastern time. And I won't praise Hitman far too often, but it's like, this is his bread and butter.
I can't get over the Jizzy J nickname. I've never heard that one.
Well, it's he's got many of his own doing from the live watch-alongs of his own doing. But yeah, that's one I haven't brought up in a while, and I'm never going to forget it. He's never going to live it down at this point. Monday Night Football, final game to talk about this week. There's some uncertainty in this game as well, particularly where it's going to be played. Prayers up to everyone in the Los Angeles region right now. Obviously, some terrible stuff going on there with the fires. Hope everyone is safe in that particular spot. Minnesota coming off of a dreadful performance on Sunday Night Football. Sam Darnold seeing ghosts 2.0, I think, in that game. Laying 1.5 minus 105 on the road here at the Rams. Totals 47.5. I mean, earlier this week, I thought is going to be played at SoFi. There's a chance that it's going to be played in Arizona, depending on what happens here this week. And there's a lot of sportsbook rules that will cancel bets or change bets depending on the venue. So you're going to want to read the house rules on every single one of these. But from a pure matchup perspective, Suma, break it down for us. Rams and Vikings, what do you see in here?
Yeah, I also have a short memory, and that Sam Darnold performance last Sunday at Lions, especially inside the 13-yard line, 10-yard line, was absolutely brutal. But I think that basically the same we said about that matchup still applies in this game against the Rams. I just don't see how the Rams defense can stop or will defend the Vikings passing game. I think that the Rams will get some push along the interior offensive line, and they might be able to contain most of those runs. But when it comes to defending the pass, I just don't see how they do it, whether it's in zone coverage or whether it's in man coverage with these cornerbacks. I just don't see it. I think that the Vikings offense should have a very decent bounce back game, so to speak. And then on the other side, the Rams offense has been highly inconsistent since Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp came back into the lineup from injuries. They cleared 21 points just 4 times in 10 games, and once was a overtime touchdown at Seattle. So basically 3 times in regulation they were able to clear 21 points, and one was a 21-point banger against the vaunted Saints defense. So they have been very inconsistent. They have not been that good overall. I think that Brian Flores didn't have a great game plan in the first matchup. They played, I think, 12% man coverage, and I think they will go more to a game plan that they applied against the Packers, where they played above 60% man coverage. Sounds bad against Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua, but I think if you play zone coverage against that offense, they will just torch you up down the field. And by playing man coverage, when Brian Flores can send some heat in Matthew Stafford's way, I think that's a way to basically speed up his process in the pocket and try to get pressure on him. And Stafford has been very bad against pressure this season. Yeah, I lean towards Minnesota. I think this is a good matchup overall. I think that the Rams would need to have a significantly above expectation performance on offense.
All right, Suma making the case for Vikings from a matchup perspective. This wouldn't be a forward progress show with Judah without at least talking about alts for some game. And this is the game you wanted to focus on, Judah. What are you thinking from an alt line perspective here?
Yeah, I think this is kind of the perfect storm for the Rams offense in terms of the matchup effects. The Vikings have probably the most extreme tendencies of any team in the NFL. They're first in the NFL in blitz rate by a wide margin. They're first in the NFL in their rate of 2-high coverages by a wide margin. And they basically never play man coverage. In each of these 3 areas, Matthew Stafford goes from, say, single high versus 2 high. Single high is about like a 30th percentile efficiency quarterback, whether you want to use yards per attempt, EPA, success rate, however you want to kind of slice it up. That goes to like 85th percentile against 2 high, which the Vikings play again at the highest rate. Same with the blitz. His EPA is significantly higher. It's 0.06 versus 0.19. Same story for yards per attempt and PFF grade, whatever. Choose your efficiency metric. Across all 3 of these areas, Stafford is far better. The other thing that I think is kind of a bit misleading is that the Rams have really leaned into their rushing attack in the last 5-6 weeks, which I think is a reason for the inconsistency of their offense. But when they're passing on early downs, they've been a far more efficient offense, and that is how teams have attacked the Vikings the entire season with one of the better run defenses in the NFL. I think this is a spot where, and you don't want to coach your bets, but I do think this is a spot, and I'm more comfortable doing so, I should say, not betting on what is most likely to happen, but leaning into a particular game script in the alt market. And I think this is a Rams offense that can have a lot more success passing on early downs. And on the other side of the ball, there's obviously some mass of Sam Darnold just turning into a pumpkin like he did on Sunday Night Football. But what I think that points to is Sam Darnold is the type of quarterback who is very reliant on the situation around him. That is like staying in structure, avoiding disruptors either on the play level or just in a negative game state. And the Vikings have done a terrific job at playing from ahead. But that also means we basically have no sample of Sam Darnold playing from behind. In fact, they've run the fewest plays, trailing by one score more. If you want to use win probability, same idea. They basically have never been playing from behind. So if we're ending up in a situation where the Rams are playing from a positive game state here, and you force a lot of these expected pass situations where Darnold has traditionally struggled, I don't think this is the same caliber offense that we would traditionally see. Meaning if like I'm making up numbers here, like rated the Minnesota Vikings as a like 4 offense. The fact that Sam Darnold is quarterbacking that 4 offense, there's a lot of mass built in of Sam Darnold playing in a good situation. And I don't think that's necessarily the case. Especially if the Rams offense can have the success I anticipate against the Vikings defense, which again is also power rated very highly by market, but I think is actually a sneaky good matchup for the Rams.
I don't know where I stand on this game, honestly. I think both Suma and you, Judah, bring up really good points and good handicaps for each side in the game. Personally, I just think that this number is kind of in the right range right now of Minnesota, small favorite, which is where I projected it. And the total's got to be higher, slightly higher than 47, which is where we're at right now as well. So I don't have an opinion on this. I do think, obviously, if there's a change in venue here, that's going to benefit Minnesota for obvious reasons, and that should be factored in. You're going to want to set push notifications on like every major beat writer, but and have a little bit of time to react if that's the case. But that's kind of all I can really say about the game that Suma and Judah didn't add. Hitman, I'll give you the final word here on the Monday Night Football game. Don't give away too much. We need people tuning in at 4 p.m. tomorrow. But if there's any look that you like, what's something that might stand out to you here for Rams and Vikings?
Just to follow up on the Darnold stuff, like he's played one high pressure game in his career. I believe so, unless I'm missing something. And that was last week, and he failed miserably. Yeah. And I kind of want to see Darnold play well in a big game before I think about backing him in that moment again. Maybe it's live, maybe it's halftime. You say, oh, he came out and fixed the problems from last week, but that was a really ugly performance. So that's kind of where I stand with Minnesota. And prop-wise, not a ton. I will say that a lot of the Rams pass catchers numbers have been kind of suppressed based off the fact they have just found themselves in game scripts in recent weeks where Stafford has either been in downpouring rain against San Francisco, or they just have legitimately not had to throw the ball or get much play volume off against the Jets. So maybe look at some guys' overs that you think might be a little bit deflated because they're theoretically should finally be in a game script where they're just not going to be sitting on the ball or playing in bad weather or anything like they've seen the past few weeks.
I said I was going to give Hitman the last word, but that would be a horrible way to end the show. So Suma, I'll go over to you here because I know you wanted to add something.
After what Sam Darnold did in the red zone last Sunday, the first short yardage situation in the red zone, do we see Daniel Jones?
Oh, that's a good question, man. I don't think so. I don't think so.
I mean,
the odds that Daniel Jones is actually.
I mean, talk about a guy like in Darnold too that like has had some confidence issues during his career, and you're in the playoffs and you're subbing him out in certain situations when he's been so good the entire season. I don't see it happening.
It was truly horrendous red zone last week. Like they had great plays that schemed Addison wide open twice, and Darnold just didn't throw the ball. I don't even understand what truly happened in those situations.
I mean, not only that, but like the other stops that Detroit got was the out pattern to TJ Hawkinson where it missed him high. He had a 3rd and 16 seam route, literally wide open to Hawkinson, missed him high. Like I was texting back and forth with a Lions fan, and it was halftime. I was like, your team hasn't gotten a legitimate stop this entire game. It's just been the Vikings stopping themselves. So
welcome to Lions football, Hitman. I don't know if you watched the 49ers game the previous week. The only stops they got were when Brock Purdy missed wide open receivers.
Yeah, I will say the second half they started to get some legitimate stops and got some pressure on Darnold and all that. But That could have easily been a double-digit lead for Minnesota at halftime, and it's a different game at that point.
Mm-hmm. Well, unfortunately, I mean, I will say, if this game was played last week, I probably would have clicked the Vikings really quickly at this price, but you got to account for last week and what we saw in what was, I mean, essentially a playoff game, and it just didn't look good from Minnesota. So I'm kind of off of it at this point. That's a wrap for our final show here. Not our final show, our first playoff show here. Thank you for tuning in. We appreciate you being here. If you enjoyed the content, hit that like button. Make sure you subscribe to Forward Progress for more. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, leave us a 5-star review. That will help us grow as well. This weekend is packed with action. We've got live watch-alongs here on Forward Progress for Steelers, Ravens, Bucks, Commanders, and Rams, Vikings. I will be hosting all of those. Be sure to join us. If you haven't checked one out, they're a blast. And we have some guests on throughout as well. Hitman does join occasionally, as does Suma, as does Judah. We have a really good time with those. Also, thank you to everyone who dropped comments last week. We do love hearing from you. Keep them coming. Don't forget, drop your Super Bowl predictions in the comments for a chance to win some exclusive Hammer merch. For myself, Rob Pizzola, Hitman, Suma, Judah, and producer Jizzy J, best of luck with your bets this week. Bet responsibly. We'll see you next time here on Forward Progress.